Okay, another progress video on my 54 Ford F100, and a couple things I've been working on. First of all, it takes me forever to get this stuff done. Some guys build their whole truck in the time it takes me to get my heater installed. But anyway, I did pick up about 6 feet of this 2-inch hose and got my heater. After getting my heater installed, I got the defroster hooked up. And I think I'll do a second video. Well, at the tail end of this one, I'll show you my heater mounted and actually got the fan working. Also, I'm going to show you my fuel gauge sender. As you recall from previous videos, I'm doing this really cheap. Not going to spend several $100s for name brand aftermarket gauges. So I just took all the gauges out of the old 89 Astrovan that I pulled the transmission out of. I got the speedometer working, volt gauge, of course that's easy to do, just hook it up to 12 volts. I got the oil pressure and temperature working on it, but the other day I went out for a ride and dang, I ran out of gas, so time to get the fuel gauge working. So I pulled the old one out. Now, biggest problem I had getting this done is I welded up the hole in the floor of the cab, right in front of the driver's seat. And it's an access hole or panel for getting to this thing. And there's no other way to get to it. Well, it just took me a few weeks to get up the gumption to go and cut a hole in the floor of my cab. It's easily not repaired, but I can make a patch panel. Anyway, this is the gauge that came out of the aftermarket stainless steel tank. And I'm assuming that this is an original gauge. The way it works is the float arm is just a bent piece of metal. Actually, the float arm is swedged onto this lever arm, part of a shaft. That shaft has an offset camming effect. So when this thing moves around, it pushes a little arm that's hooked to a bellows. You can kind of see the perforation down in there, and that bellows goes up and down. Problem is, I assume it pushes up and down on a resistor of some kind in here that is mounted to, this was mounted to a tang for, and I don't know if it used to have rubber in there or what. I assume that this was isolated, somehow isolated in there. And the wire that hooked to this then was isolated from the body of the tank. Anyway, this is pretty tough shape. I have no idea, it's not working. I have no idea how to make it work. So, and the other interesting thing on this, besides the little bit of gasoline in the float, it's obviously leaking, is this bolt pattern is really off. There's this center to center distance here, I think, is the longest one. I'm only assuming that it was mounted where this here is parallel with the driver's side, and this is the left side, so this would be the front. So it's mounted so this thing goes in and doesn't hit the end of the tank. End of the tank is like here. So maybe it's just made so it only goes in one way and you don't get it in there crooked. Anyway, use that as a pattern. Made a stainless steel circle and a gasket, of course, with the bolt pattern to match. Then I put a 5/16 inch screw, worked it down in the top end of this sender that came out of the tank of the Astrovan. It had extended on down. It actually had the pump hooked to it too. Anyway, threw the pump away, just took the sender, and so this sender goes with the gauge that's in my panel. And this runs 10 ohms up to about 100 ohms. And I bent this arm a little bit here to try and get the total depth here to match my tank. I measured the tank from the bottom of the tank, or the top of the tank to the bottom of the tank is about 11.5 inches, so my float's swinging through an 11.5 inch arc. So I'll stick that in, hook it up. Hopefully my gas gauge works great. Okay, the other thing I'm going to show you is my heater. So this might be a little dark. Anyway, I got some insulation on the firewall, and wish I could remember offhand. This is the cheapest kind of this type of liner that I could find, and I got 2 layers on there. The bottom layer is like the sound deadener, and the second layer is a thin layer of like thin foam insulation with aluminum on both sides. And then I got my heater up in there, and up in there I got hoses hooked up. Shouldn't even show you my wiring job. And then I did a pulse width modulating controller and mounted it on a bracket here. Left room for 1, 2, 3. It's probably a little dark in here. 1, 2, 3 push-pull throttle cables to work my fresh air, all the controls on my fresh air heater. And I put a couple LEDs in there to illuminate these knobs a little bit, so I can get at them when it's dark. And then the heater fan has it's actually a 5-speed, low, 2, 3, 4, high, high, Alright, and down there's the hole that I cut for getting at the top of the tank, and I'm going to put that in next. So maybe a video here later of my all my gauges working in my instrument panel.